Hi, everybody. This is Jan Kriisa. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the organ, the Kriisa organ. Harry Kriisa was my father-in-law that built the organ, and my mother-in-law has told us all, reminded us about the story. So I wanted to relate a little bit of that to you. Not so much concentrating on the organ itself or the number of pipes or the ranks or any of that, but more on how God played a role. We believe God played a role in the building of that pipe organ and in getting Harry and Vera here in the first place. So we go back to the beginning of World War II. Harry was serving as a soldier in the Estonian army. They had Germans fighting over Estonia, coming in from the east and or the west, I'm sorry, and then Russia also battling for them coming in from the east. So they were caught in the middle. Harry was injured during the war, and he was sent to a refugee camp in Germany to recuperate. My mother-in-law was a 19-year-old nursing student at the time. She was away from her family home in school when the Russians invaded, and she managed to escape and take shelter on a ship that was leaving the shore of Estonia during the night. They both ended up in a refugee camp in Geislingen, Germany, where they spent the next 5 years. Vera and Harry met there. They started dating there, and about a year later, they married. About a year later, they had their first child together. All of this took place in that refugee camp in Germany. At the end of the war, a lot of those people in the refugee camps were being accepted into other countries. And my father-in-law became very depressed because of his shoulder injury. He was being rejected by a lot of those other countries, Sweden, Belgium, and Australia. Nobody wanted him because they needed strong, healthy men to do manual labor jobs. He had given up on the idea that he would ever be able to build pipe organs again, which was what his trade was. It was during this time that my mother-in-law, who was very optimistic, kept praying and assuring her husband, my father-in-law, that everything would be okay and that God would provide for them. It turned out to be a mixed blessing because toward the end of that 5 years, the United States started accepting refugees. And lo and behold, at that time, the pastor here at First Lutheran Church and the church was looking for an organ builder. And Pastor Roland Griekman, who was pastor at that time, started doing a search of the different refugee camps in Europe, trying to find someone who had training as an organ builder. I'm going to read a little bit of my own words as she told the story of how they came to be here in Decatur, Illinois. First Lutheran Church had bought an Aeolian organ from New York and wanted to add that to its smaller Skinner organ. An organ builder had promised to do the job for 5 years, but kept postponing it. Pastor Riekman got tired of waiting and thought, why not try to get an organ builder from the refugee camps in Europe? He wasn't sure he'd be able to find anybody, and he didn't really believe it would work, but he was encouraged by others, and he decided to give it a try. If they did not find an organ builder, maybe they could at least find an organist, which they also needed at the time. So on one side of the ocean, Pastor Riekman was looking for an organ builder and an organist, not believing he would find one. On the other side of the ocean, My father-in-law did not believe he would ever be able to build organs again. God works in mysterious ways, and things worked out for both sides. It took lots of time and red tape, but finally, in September 1949, the Kriisa family, which consisted at the time of Harry, Vera, and 9-month-old Mari, arrived in Decatur. And I have a photo. I hope this shows. This is how they would have looked at that time. This is my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, and their oldest child, Mari, in the middle. Okay. Harry, like I said, was a little bit of a pessimist. And even on the ship on their way over, he found things to worry about, including, how will I even build an organ? I don't have any tools. I don't have a workshop. I don't know if I can get the materials that I need. But Vera would always assure him that God would provide. When they did arrive in Decatur, the church had answers for them. They were able to give Harry a Sunday school room in the old church building to use as his workshop. And they also bought him all the tools that he needed, telling him that he could pay them back as the years went by and as he had work. So it took 2 years for him to finish that first work in the old church. And the organ there was finally dedicated in November of 1952. Then Harry began to worry, what will I do for work now that the organ is finished? But Vera would always say, God has helped us through all the hardships so far. He will show us the way. And the pastor of the church at that time started putting the word out around central Illinois that they had an organ builder who was available for work and also was available to tune organs. The calls started coming in, and he always had enough work to get by. Then in the early 60s, reading again from my mother-in-law's words, First Lutheran decided to build a new church on the corner of Decatur and Church Street, where we're currently located. It was a big undertaking, and many decisions had to be made, and many people had to be satisfied. But under the leadership of then pastors Erickson and Hedrick, it was decided that Harry would do the organ work and that they would build a new organ. Most old pipes would be kept, but everything else would be new, including several ranks of pipes. Metal pipes were ordered from a German company at the time, Laukoff Company. And then the wooden gedecked rank in the choir, Harry built himself. He also modernized most of the old pipes, changing their mouth to give them a clearer tone. The flue pipes sounded fine after he had worked on them. The reeds would need to be replaced sometime in the future. At the time, because of the cost, it was out of the question. This was later done in 2004. While the new church was being built and the old building sold, everything had to be moved out and stored. Taking the organ down and packing the pipes for storage was a huge job. Pipes take much more space lying down than standing upright, and some of the pedal pipes are as much as 16 feet tall. At the time, we had, and still is, a member of the church, Larry Weaver. He had Weaver Brothers Moving Company, and they had a warehouse. Larry Weaver came and said, we'll help move all the pipes and we will store them in our warehouse, which was another blessing from God. While Harry was building the new chest, console, expression chambers, and etc., those pipes were safely stored until they were ready to be installed. After the new church was almost finished, Harry installed part of the new organ so that it could be used at least for Sunday services while he finished building the rest. Finally, after 4 years of work, everything was finished and the new organ was dedicated on April 26, 19. I will say that I know at the time that was the largest organ in Decatur, and also was the largest pipe organ that Harry had ever built. There were more than 1,000 small parts that needed to be glued together, and this became kind of a family undertaking. Vera did a lot of the work, and also their oldest daughter, Mari. who was in college at the time. She would work for him during the summer and would do a lot of that small glue work herself. I do want to say a few personal stories. One was that I contacted both my sister-in-laws before I recorded this to see if they wanted to add anything. My older sister-in-law, Mari, said that she was in college at the time and was not even able to attend that 50 years ago, that dedication of the organ. And then my younger sister-in-law said she remembered it very well. She was very impressed with the organist that came and played for that dedication. However, she was funny. She said the main thing she remembered was that she got a new dress for the occasion, and she can still remember that dress very well. I want to show another picture of Harry and Vera. This was them when they were in the refugee camp in Germany. And then this was another picture. This was after they had their two oldest children. The youngest is not in the picture. The last thing I wanted to say was that they were very, very thrilled always that they got to be brought to America. They became citizens. They were able to buy their own home. They were very patriotic and remained so forever. One funny story was that Russia had taken over, the Soviet Union had taken over Estonia after the war, and all of their family, their immediate family, was still there. And propaganda was that life in America was terrible, that people didn't have work, that they couldn't get food. The Soviet Union portrayed America as a very bad place to be. And Harry used to get letters from his sister saying that she was praying for him every day, that she was praying that they had enough food to eat, that they had a place to live, because correspondence was almost impossible back then. She also said she prayed every day that he would have work. Finally, when Harry was able to get a letter through to her, he told her, "Please stop praying for me. I have more work than I can handle." And that was always kind of a funny story. So they felt very blessed, and they had a good life here. We miss them.